Prisons house some of the most terrifying and unlawful people in history, from killers to thieves to money launderers. These people have no respect for the law or some of the people in this world. However, sometimes the prisons can be worse than the prisoners, with these prisons breaking many human rights laws. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scary prisons throughout human history. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. Coming in at number 5, we have Tadmor Prison in Syria. Tadmor Prison was located in Tadmor in the deserts of eastern Syria. It was a prison known for harsh conditions, extensive human rights abuse, torture, and summary executions. It was ultimately captured and destroyed by militants of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant in May 2015. Built in the 1930s by the French, Tadmor's notoriety began 40 years later during the rule of Hafez al-Assad. Some of the horrendous atrocities reported at Tadmor are soldiers killed between 500 and 1,000 prisoners in one day. Medical treatment was scarce, with guards telling inmates only callers to collect bodies. Guards held a reception party for incoming inmates that involved hitting them up to 400 times. Guards forced 2 inmates at a time to hold a third by his arms and legs and threw him across the room. When a man refused, he was beaten so severely that he died soon after. Inmates couldn't lift their eyes from the ground and would distinguish nice guards from sadistic ones by the color of their boots. During the 1980s, Tadmor Prison, housed of Syrian prisoners, was the location of one of the worst prison massacres. Members of units of the defense brigades under the command of Rafael al-Assad entered Tadmor Prison at dawn and killed an estimated 1,000 prisoners in the cells and dormitories. In May 2015, Tadmor was captured by the Islamic State, who also took over the prison and released a video of its interior. ISIL militants used explosives to blow up the prison complex on May 30th. Coming in at 4, we have Camp 22, North Korea. Camp 22, also known as Horyang concentration camp, was a prison camp in North Korea that was reported to have been closed in 2012. The official name was Kwalso, Penal Labor Colony number 22. The camp was a maximum security area completely isolated from the outside world. Now, the conditions in the camp were reportedly horrific. Former guard Ahn Myung-chul describes the conditions in the camp as harsh and life-threatening. He recalls the shock he felt upon his first arrival at the camp, where he likened the prisoners to walking skeletons, dwarfs, and cripples in rags. Ahn estimated that about 30% of the prisoners had deformities such as torn off ears, smashed eyes, crooked noses, and faces covered with cuts and scars resulting from beatings and other mistreatment. Single prisoners lived in bunkhouses with 100 people in a room. As a reward for good work, families were often allowed to live together in a single room inside of a small house without running water. Prisoners had to do hard physical labor in agriculture, mining, and inside factories from 5 AM to 8 PM, followed by ideological re-education and self-criticism sessions. The mines were not equipped with safety measures, and according to Ahn, prisoners were consequently killed almost every single day. Torture was inflicted every day at Camp 22, with Ahn reporting the following torture methods. Water torture. The prisoner must stand on his or her toes in a tank filled with water to his nose for 24 hours. Hanging torture. The prisoner is stripped and hung upside down from the ceiling to be violently beaten. Boxroom torture. The prisoner is detained in a very small solitary cell, in which there is barely enough room to sit, but not stand or lie, for 3 days or a week. Not to mention kneeling torture, as well as pigeon torture. It was also rumored that human experimentation took place at the camp as well. Coming in at number 3, we have La Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. La Sabaneta Prison, also known as the Maracaibo Prison, was a notoriously violent prison in the city of Maracaibo, Venezuela, in the state of Zulia. It was operated by the Ministry of Prison Systems, most recently under Minister Iris Varela from 1958 to 2013. Typical of a Venezuelan prison, it was severely overcrowded, with inadequate access to medical care, food, and clean water, and violence among prisoners was common. Gangs of prisoners had control over the prison and were led by a pran, meaning inmate leader. The prison was ultimately closed after 55 years of operation due to government intervention, and is now being converted into a museum. At one period of time, the prison was home to 3,700 inmates, with the prison being built to occupy just 700. Of this number, an estimated 192 of them were children of the inmates. inmates. The prison was run by prisoners themselves, following the trend of 80% of Venezuelan prisons which are run by the prisoners. Now, on January 3rd, 1994, a riot broke out in the prison as a result of ongoing gang activity. A fire was started by a group of inmates, and then they subsequently shot or stabbed other inmates who tried to escape the fire. While there is some dispute over the number of casualties and injuries during the incident, many of the prisoners were killed when security personnel attempted to take control of the prison, with some sources claiming over 150 casualties. The riot brought attention to the poor conditions in Venezuelan prisons and is often cited as one of the deadliest prison incidents in history. Coming in at number 2, Gladani Prison, Georgia. The horrors going on at the Gladani prison first came to public attention in 2012, when video footage was leaked which contained scenes of guard-on inmate assault, torture, and even sexual assault. This quickly became a political scandal in the country of Georgia. The scandal was unique in Georgian history in that it was initially shared and discussed on social media before the story began to appear on Georgia's largely pro-government television channels. Besides the images of stark physical abuse, which included the use of broomsticks and lit cigarettes, the videos displayed abuse perceived as having implications related to homosexuality, which is a largely taboo subject in Georgia's ultra-conservative religious culture. Overcrowding, poor medical care, and unsanitary conditions pale in comparison to the reign of terror and sexual abuse that the prison guards indulged in. To make the situation worse, most of the inmates were petty criminals and thieves, with there likely being a large amount of innocent men behind those bars getting tortured. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Carandiru Penitentiary, Brazil. Carandiru Penitentiary was a prison located in Sao Paulo, Brazil, originally designed and built by Samuel das Neves, all the way back in 1920, when it was considered a model prison to meet the new demands of the 1819 Criminal Code. The prison was operational between 1956 to 2002, and was at one period of time South America's largest penitentiary, housing over 8,000 inmates. However, in 1992 it was the site of the Carandiru massacre. The massacre was triggered by a prisoner revolt. Around 1:30 p.m, two groups of people got into a fight following a game of football. The fight escalated into a prison riot that lasted around 3 hours. According to reports, prisoners were attacking one another with knives and even pipes. The riot consisted of around 2,069 inmates versus just 15 guards, resulting in the guards losing control over the situation. The military was ultimately called, with the prisoners being stripped, locked in their cells, and shot. Other prisoners were killed by police dogs. To make matters worse, the facility was a detention center, not a prison, meaning the inmates had not been tried or convicted. By the end of the day, 111 prisoners were killed and 37 more were injured. Police were also reported to have killed witnesses, wounded prisoners, and even those forced to remove bodies. The prison was demolished on December 8, 2002. One block was left intact to be used as a museum, now open to public. Some trivia for you guys: the Carandiru Penitentiary was the inspiration for the penitentiary scene in season 3 of Prison Break. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any scary prisons that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 scary Japanese horror movies from the 2010s part 2. Robert Madden said, "Everyone knows not to touch Lucy, just look at what she did to Keegan's leg when he walked too close." Ain't that the truth? Keegan said he hurt his leg in a skateboarding accident, but we all know he doesn't skateboard. I know what really happened. Charles Eichelberger said, "Never get tired of her saying rotten tomatoes." Rotten tomatoes. Rotten tomatoes. This side goes up said, "By location." Man, that was hard to hear each time. Okay, guys, I hadn't seen the film, so cut me some slack. When you see the word written, you think bilocation. Am I right? If there was a hyphen between the by and the location, I would have said by location. But I understand the movie is called By Location, so forgive me. I'm not even sorry. James Vance said, "Half of these movies I've never heard of. Thanks, Scary 5 Gang." You're very welcome. I hadn't heard of most of them either, but now I'm gonna go watch them. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.